get out there, catch more fish.
Hey guys, Mike here from Binya Outdoors. Sorry we're a little bit late, some technical difficulties, but we are here for a live stream that I've been looking forward to for quite a while actually. I have a special guest here and I'm going to let him introduce himself and then we'll get right into the show.
How's it going? Chris with eBay Lure Lab, and we're here to talk to Binya Outdoors tonight.
So the reason why I wanted to have Chris on here, guys, is because, well, I'll be honest with you, I have been personally trying to do everything from paint baits with nail polish, acrylic paint, trying to do all the simple little things to make my own custom stuff. And when I went to the Springfield Sportsman Show, I walked around the corner from the Jigs and Bigs booth, and there was all of these awesome looking baits, just highly detailed. Honestly, I thought they were like factory made, and then I realized he hand paints all this stuff. It is a small local shop, and I had to get to know him more. We've been talking quite a bit. He's actually designed a couple of baits for me, and I've done a video on that already. And I wanted to bring someone on from the industry that does something other than fish, that contributes to the bait side of the world. So the first question I wanted to go over on here is what got you started in bait making? Like what inspired you to start doing that?
So it's pretty basic. We were, you know, I wanted to do something for pike and muskie baits. Every time I went to the bait shop, the pike baits and the muskie baits were pretty expensive, and not only that, but it just wasn't what I was looking for. So I got frustrated after a while. So I went home and I started cutting like broomstick handles, and I started practicing painting on that, just to see where I could go or what I could do. And it was really frustrating because I had an idea in my head, but I just couldn't get it out. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yep.
And when that happens, I think it kind of lights a fire, so to speak, because it's there, you're capable of it, but you just can't make it happen.
Yep.
So it was just day after day after day trying to figure it out. So, and we got to a point where they were okay. So, and actually, Mike, I'll show you this bait right here.
Yep.
Was the first pike bait that I took fishing, and I actually caught a 48-inch pike on that. And
Wow.
when that happened, it was when you catch something on that you made by your own two hands.
Yep. Absolutely.
You do soft plastics,
Yep.
And that was it. It just lit a fire.
Yep. Exactly. So now you started out, so that was that. I have to ask on that bait right there. Is that like a silicone tail on that bait? Is that what that is?
So this is cedar,
Okay.
and then I carved it and painted it. I mean, the paint job on it's pretty rough. I mean, it's got Walmart googly eyes, if you can see that on there.
Hey, you'd be surprised though. Yeah.
But
That's funny.
yeah, and then I just put a tail on it and took it swimming, and then it got eaten. That was that.
Yeah, so I personally have tried, I've dabbled, and there's a few things, there's actually a couple of things like fly fishing and airbrush and getting into the actual true painting arts that I've avoided because of what you just said. Because I am too damn competitive, and I am going to spend so many hours trying to perfect it, and I only have so much time in my day between content creation, fishing, family. If I tried to go down the rabbit hole of painting, there is no way I would be able to have enough time to do it all, and I would get frustrated. It's not something that's easy. For those of you who look at those baits in the store, those are mass produced. Those are being made by a machine. Those aren't hand painted. When you're talking hand painted baits, he's literally taking a clear plastic blank and making it look like a fish, making it have scales, making it have color, making it have detail. That's not something that's just there for him. He's drawing all of that essentially with an airbrush. Is that pretty much what you use, is just the regular airbrush set, or do you have other techniques that you use?
Yeah, I run two different two different type airbrushes, and I run two different compressors.
Okay.
So I'm riding the Iowata HPC Eclipse.
Okay.
Uh, so I have two of those, but I have two different size needles in each gun. So I basically have like a detail gun, and then I have like a base coat gun.
Okay.
So, and my other air compressor, I can really fine tune my air pressure. So, uh, a lot of bait painters out there trying to figure out things. It all has to do with thinning your paint, and the right psi.
Okay.
Once you get those things figured out, you can really start getting in depth with detail, and it makes a big difference on how that paint lays on the bait.
And that's what I've noticed a lot with, like, I've looked at a lot of your baits on Instagram, and I've looked at a lot of the stuff that you just like post when like, hey, look what I made, pictures and stuff like that. Is some of the stuff that I've seen online from, and I'm not disparaging any other, but I've just seen other videos of other customers, other custom guys, and they do like a single color. You actually are like overlaying, you're like layering colors across the bait
Yes,
a lot. So,
yes. And the reason I do that is the more you layer color, um, it gives it depth,
yep,
and I think it also gives it a more like a realism. So even with my perch, if you would look at a perch and think, yeah, it's a basic perch, well, there's two different yellows in that perch, plus there's a little bit of gold. And the
right,
reason I use my gold is when you put your green, when that green hits the yellow, it's not turning to blue. You know what I mean? Plus,
yep.
it gives that little bit of shimmer. But, in my bluegills, shit, I think I have 8 different colors in my bluegills.
It's crazy. Like I said, that's the kind of stuff that, well, just to give you guys an example, okay, I wanted to do this, and I'm not sure how this is going to work. I haven't done this before, but I want to show you guys exactly what we're talking about here. This is literally from his Instagram. These are the kind of baits, and he's probably got some personal photos in here too. But if you look through here, guys, the detail on some of these baits, like for example, these perch right here, you see that color, you see the scales on these fish. Like, this isn't something where you're just spray painting a solid color onto a bait. There is a ton of detail in these. Like right here, you see the dots, you see the layering. This isn't something that you're just going to get by, I mean, like this right here, exactly. Like something like this. How do you do the that jointed swim bait where you have the actual different black and gray and all the different detail? Do you have to like tape it, or are you just like literally shooting color at it and hoping that it doesn't spread out too much?
Well, I do what's called painting wet on wet.
Okay.
So a lot of people, when they paint their bait, they'll heat set it and then go to their next color.
Okay.
I don't do that.
Okay.
Colors blend naturally. I think it gives it a more natural feel if the colors kind of blend together. So that's just kind of my style.
Yep.
There's a lot of good bait painters out there that do things, and that's there's a lot of people in this industry that are painting baits. There's bait painters out there,
Yep.
but each one has their own style, their own unique that kind of separates and individualizes, them from other people.
Yep.
And that's what I love about bait business. I can paint a perch, you can paint a perch, somebody else can paint a perch, but style wise, they're all going to be a little different.
Has own little touch too. That's
Right.
the thing and that's the other thing about the custom baits that interested me is, to be honest, being from Vermont, our forage is very limited.
Mm-hmm.
So perch, bluegill. That's basically it. That's the main forage here in Vermont. We don't have shad per se. In Champlain we've got alewives, but
Yep.
that's the kind of the equivalent of the alternative. Apparently they're getting gobies in Champlain, but I haven't seen them yet. We'll see if that actually comes true or not. But um, the thing is, Strike King's perch looks like Sixth Sense's perch, looks like Rapala's perch. they don't look that much different, and because they're made in a factory, they're almost identical. Whereas a hand painted bait, if the painter's really good, they look really close. But if you actually look at them, there's a slight variation from one to
Hmm.
the next. And it actually, in my opinion, there is something about a slight, just tiny difference in a bait that could be all the difference in the world. I come from a king salmon fishing background where we had baits, same bait, same spoon, put that spoon out, catch nothing on it. Take the spoon out of the tackle box, it has some teeth marks in it. Same maker, same manufacturer, but it's faded in the sun or it's got a tooth mark in the wrong spot. And that one catches fish. And that's what's interesting to me about the custom painting is that you're not getting an exact replica, you're getting a really close one, but sometimes that can make a difference on whether the fish bite it or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think that comes down to color and water clarity too.
Yep. Yep.
That that particular spoon that's brand new out of the package might have too much shine or shimmer to it,
Yep.
where that old beat up one is more like a matte finish
Yep.
now, so, and that could determine the time of year too. um, the subtle things make a big difference sometimes.
And the other thing I noticed too, and this is something that again I dabbled in it, and it was just because I wanted to just play around, you know.
Hmm.
But the thing I noticed is the blanks you use are not cheap, and what I mean by cheap is they're not knockoff clear plastic baits that look like they're going to break the first time I cast them. They're
Right.
the real deal blanks. And that's something that, again, not to disparage other painters, but sometimes you don't know what you're getting when you order something online from someone. You don't know if you're getting a good quality bait that's going to have the right action to go with the paint job. You're getting maybe a cool paint job and it's an inferior
Yeah.
blank or things like that too. So,
And yet again with the blanks, a lot of bait painters out there, they're using the same blanks. um, and the blanks have come a long way just in the well, I started doing this, and I started goofing around painting in 2016. Started uh, kind of taking things a little bit serious in 2018, and I think that's when we launched. We kind of started our own thing, but just in that time frame to now, the quality of blanks that are on the market are so much better, you know.
yep,
And I think if you're starting off brand new, um, go ahead and get those Amazon blanks. Go
right.
ahead and get, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. Some of them work really well, but you don't want to spend, top dollar on blanks until you're really ready with your baits. You know what I mean?
Yep, yep.
So, and there's a lot of companies out there that are replicate, because even a lot of uh, the manufacturers out there in the fishing industry are all using the same blanks.
Yeah, there's a lot of I know Berkeley gets knocked for like copying other people's stuff a lot. Like they kind of take a simple design even though they're making their own. They tend to like modify it just slightly cuz at the end of the day, a square bill is a square bill to be honest. Like there's not a lot you can really change in that bait. But the one thing I did notice and the other question I had is what do you have a specific brand of hooks that you use when you put your hooks on or do you
I've been using Eagle Claw needle points for
Okay.
years. For
Yep.
years. A lot of people knock the Eagle Claws, but they're made here in the
Oh,
U.S. And I tell you what, I like the wire hooks. They're not as heavy as some of the bigger, thicker metal hooks.
yep.
So you'll get a little bit different action in your bait. Um, but those Eagle Claws have never let me down. I
Yep.
mean, this for instance, this bait has got a size 6 in the front of it and a 4 in the back,
Okay.
because when I made this bait, I didn't space my hooks out properly and they were getting caught up. So, and for that little size 6 hook, for a 48-inch pike to get that, and you can see the hooks aren't bent.
Yep.
I've used them for, gosh, years,
Yep.
and those are my go-to hooks. You
It's
know,
funny because I've gone back and forth on like I've never been a snob when it comes to brand. I have everything under the sun for hooks, for baits, for rods, reels, and to be honest, like I bought Owner, I bought Mustad, I bought
yep,
Gamakatsu, and I like Trokar just as much. And it's
yeah,
just an Eagle Claw brand. I buy Eagle Claw treble hooks a lot for replacing them on my crankbaits because, to be honest, too, for me, it's a cost thing because I'll admit I suck at making sure my boxes are not wet and I
yeah,
get rusty treble hooks a lot. Treble hooks, it's just the nature of them. They're going to get rusty. It's just part of it. And if I have to spend a ton of money, and you're replacing two on every bait, if not three, if you're working a jerk bait,
right.
so you're spending a ton of money to swap those out if they get rusty.
Oh,
Now, the other question I had is because I have a couple. I have the square bill and the lipless. Do you have a specific size that you use for those? Because I that's a question for me, just in case I have to replace those. What size? Do you know what sizes you use on those?
generally on like a half-ounce lipless, I'll use a size 6.
Okay.
Um, just because you could probably put fours on it. I don't know if they'll get caught up or not.
Okay.
But I noticed when you use a half-ounce lipless with the size 4, you don't get that nice. You know what I mean? It kind
Yep.
of gives it a more of a wobble than a shake.
Okay. Yep.
And that's just my own personal opinion.
It's the weight to offset. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
and then on a square bill, I definitely go for size 4 in a square bill for sure.
Okay.
You know,
Gotcha.
but
So if you guys aren't picking up on the details, that's the difference between someone who just does this for the heck of it and someone who fishes it. Is he's giving you details about what he's not saying is the weight distribution of those hooks is different from one size to another, which drastically affects the action of the bait. And that's something that he's taking into consideration. And that's, I think, the advantage of having a guy who's pinning the baits, who's probably fishing the same bait on the weekend, is he's getting his own R&D time in and figuring out what works, what doesn't work, what looks good, what doesn't look good. So you get that advantage of a fisherman that's also in the fishing industry. You usually get you're basically doing
oh
R&D,
yeah,
which you would want.
that's the best part of the job is,
Yep,
hey, let's go out and test this. You know,
absolutely.
so
I know
but
I do that with plastics a lot. Is I try. It's funny because that's the one thing, and I don't know if you've noticed this as much with the plastics, but like I know with the plastic baits that you're doing is the soft plastics. What I paint and what I make in my house, right, is like say I make a green pumpkin, but when I put it in the water, it's like copper. Like it's crazy how much the water will actually change what the color looks like, especially by water clarity. But in general, even fairly clear water, it doesn't look the same as it does under my lights in my house.
and as a bait painter, that can be a hard thing sometimes because I know what color looks like at depth.
Right.
You know, so like me, I use pink a lot. What like for soft plastics, and like July, August when the smallmouth go deep,
Yep.
I'll use pink because yeah, 3, 6 feet, it still looks pink, but when you put it down 20, 25 feet, it's no longer pink, it's tan.
Right.
So and deep divers are the same way. You know what I mean? So when
Right.
I paint a deep diver, I want to paint a deep diver to the forage fish. So it looks as a closest representation at depth as what they're used to eating.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
That makes
So,
perfect sense.
and then of course you got to throw in your fun colors. So,
Well, yeah, and that's again kind of the beauty of it. Is you the have the fun of like I've seen some of your baits, and I'm not gonna lie, some of them I'm like, oh man, that's ultra realistic, and then that one I'm like, really? But like sometimes you just gotta have fun with it too, and sometimes it's just
yeah.
some of the baits, like the one you designed for me, that viral perch style color, that purple with the chartreuse. There isn't anything in the lake that's that color per se, but like you said, when you get it in the water and then it gets down deeper and the way the sun's hitting, it is going to not look the same as it does on the surface. And
Right.
I've had a lot of success with weird colors. And honestly, that's kind of brings me into the segue into I have bought a lot of baits. I have more crankbaits than I will ever probably need or use. and a lot of them I just gave up on because I didn't like them or whatever. But the price that you're charging for your baits is so economical in the sense of what people could charge for hand painted baits and what people do charge and get versus what you're charging. There's a big range there. And I'm
Yeah.
not necessarily, again, it, it's your work. It's something that, to be honest, looking at your baits, when I saw them in the rack, I actually walked by your whole display going, yeah, I don't want to, I'm not going to be able to spend that much money today. And then I came back and I flipped them over and then I started asking for pricing and you're like, oh, these are swim baits for $30. These are crankbaits for $9. And I'm like, this is $9 because I'm paying like $7.99 for Strike King KVD 1.5s that don't look this good.
Yeah.
And that's something that I was very impressed with, the pricing model, and you can tell that you're doing this because it's a passion. It's something that you enjoy. It's not something that you're trying to get rich quick. It's something that you're actually invested in.
Oh yeah. Let's make no mistake. If you want to be a bait painter, there's no get rich quick thing out there. You know,
Right.
'cause by the time you get your your blanks, your paint, your clear coat, your snap rings,
Yeah.
your hooks, your packaging, and then your labels. Uh, but for me, to give somebody a good quality bait to have in their arsenal for a reasonable price, and I'm all about that because I was that angler. I got a wife, 2 kids at home. I can't be going out and spending $100 on tackle, but I need something that's going to produce fish. You know what I mean? I don't.
Right.
So I'm well aware of that fishing on a budget, so to speak,
Yep.
and I just like to do what I do and share my passion and give people a good bait for a good price.
And I will say, and I'm just gonna kind of transition to this. Chris didn't know I did this, but I reached out to some buddies. All of these guys caught these fish this year on his baits. Every one of these fish were caught on eBay painted baits. These are all guys that I know. They're my friends and they fish a ton. Two of them are tournament anglers. One of them hosts a podcast that is on Chris's shirt, as a matter of fact. But all of those fish were caught this year using his baits that they bought from him at a show. And I'm actually going to be going out on Saturday, and I have a whole big plan for. I finally found some open water up here that I'm going to be able to get out. There's a pond near my house that has. I mean, near, it's 40 minutes away, but if fishing that's near is relative. But it has about 13, 14 feet, and then there's like usually 2 or 3 feet of grass that's still there. So I'm going to be using those square bills, ticking the tops of that grass, using lipless, ripping it through, trying to draw some bites out, and it's just something that I'm excited about. But if you wanted proof of concept, there it is. There's 3 guys in different areas that have been fishing the baits that have already sent me photos of fish that they've caught with his paint jobs. So
Yeah, appreciate that. And thanks to the Jigs and Bigs crew. Those guys are great. I love their podcast.
yeah, they're a friend of the show. I talk to Bobby all the time. He's probably sick of hearing from me, to be honest with you. So we
Yeah,
did we did actually have a question here. I'll bring that on. Let's see. Oh, he's looks like asking, would you throw these baits in the Susquehanna? Yeah.
absolutely. If I'm fishing the Susquehanna River, that's kind of tea stained water. The kind of you know It's funny because me, my dad, my brother, we used to fish the Susquehanna River. We grew up on it. So, but yeah, I would probably throw gold and black, pearlized white. Um, yeah, but then again, the Susquehanna River is shallow, so it's got a lot of shallow spots in it. But a square bill to ricochet them off the rocks would probably do well. The little bit deeper spots, the medium divers. Plus, you got muskie in the Susquehanna. Oh shit!
Exactly. So, and I mean, honestly, you're fishing where you're fishing. I mean, it's deep, but it's still
Yeah,
current, so it's still very much same kind of concept but deeper. So
Yeah, actually, we know some people that throw baits in the Susquehanna, and they've done pretty well with them down there. Um, we did the show with one of the guides down there, and yeah, I mean the Susquehanna is becoming a pretty good fishery for decent sized smallmouth.
it's getting really popular with the kayak scene. I know like Hobie
Yeah.
BOS and a lot of those big kayak trails are starting to hit it. Now you are, out of curiosity, kind of transitioning into a little bit of fishing talk here. Are you, if you're targeting fish, are you like more of a smallmouth guy because of where you are, or are you still trying to find those big largemouth?
It depends on the time of the year.
Okay.
So, like for me, when when the season starts, right off the bat, I'm targeting largemouth. You
Okay.
know, because they're coming out of their spawn. So I'm just getting my way into the backwaters, and I'm following their transition back into the open river. So as they're moving down like these creeks or the backwaters, I'm moving with them. So if I'm starting, a couple hundred yards off the main river, the next day I go out, I'll move closer to the main river.
Follow them.
Yeah, yeah, and then when
Oops.
like July, August, when the water heats up, the fish in the St. Lawrence River, they don't like that warm water. They push deep pretty quick.
Yep.
And I think that's probably a lot to do with the boat traffic in and out all these bays and stuff. So then I'll start switching over to like 20 feet, 16 feet. And then as the summer progresses, I'll start fishing deeper, and then in the fall, when they start coming back in, then, so to me, this is the way I fish. So I start with the largemouth early part of the season, shallower water.
Yep.
As the season progresses, I go deeper, deeper, deeper. The later the season gets, I do the same pattern, but just in reverse.
Reverse. Yep.
Yeah,
Which is literally following. So for those of you who don't know the bass transitional patterns, bass will go usually a little bit deeper in the wintertime, not super deep, but they get to a point where they find a depth that they like because they're cold blooded. So they stay in a certain depth, and the reason for that is because it's less turbulent of a water. That water is going to stay pretty much within a degree or two of the same temperature because it's not getting hit by the sun, it's not being affected by the weather, and they'll stay there until it's about time to spawn. Then they start pushing up shallow, they spawn in shallow water, and then once that water starts to get too warm for them to tolerate, because again, they can't regulate their own temperature, they go back out deep. They're basically chasing water temperature. And what it sounds like is you're doing the textbook bass style fishing where you follow their
yeah,
transitions. So they have specific areas that they spawn for, and then they have specific areas that they, summer and winter. So
right, right. And like I also try and hit those offshore. Like here in the river, we have offshore like grass plateaus.
yep.
So you'll have 35 feet of water all around, and there's a big hump that comes up, and it's all grass. So, and up here, you'll see people that just get in their boat and go right by it, right by it, right
Yep.
by it. But man, you get out on that grass hump, that's where one of those swim baits come in handy. You just bring that right over top of that grass. Woo!
Yep. Now, are you more of a, so like I have found myself, and it's actually because of jigs and bigs, but some other issues that I've ran into too, is are you just targeting bass, or are you just whatever bites you're excited to just hook onto something and pull it in?
I'm a multi-species angler,
Okay.
but if I'm going fishing, I'm targeting a specific,
Yep.
because my rods are going to be rigged up for that.
Yep.
I'll always have at least one pike rod rigged up.
Okay.
So I usually have 8 rods, uh, and one of them will always be rigged up for a pike. I can't
Okay.
help it because
They're
if the
fun to
bass,
catch.
yeah, well, not only that, but if the bass bites slow, you can always find pike on this river. You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
so but generally, yeah, um, I'll fish for pike in the early part of the season. Um, and then I kind of hammer the bass pretty hard And like I said, once in a while I'll get out there and I like throwing gigantic baits for pike. So that's like kind of addiction for me.
What's funny about, and you probably have muskie too, right? Do you have
Oh yeah,
muskie in there?
yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
See, Vermont doesn't, we have muskie supposedly, but Fish and Game stocked them. They weren't native to Vermont, and they've tried to introduce them, but so far I've seen little ones caught, but I haven't seen any of the, like, the traditional, like, guys holding them like this and
Yeah.
celebrating because they've got this fish that's almost as long as they are in the boat with them. Um,
Well, it
now
takes.
does them. I can imagine they're like more finicky, right? From my understanding, they're a little bit harder to find. They're a little bit more elusive than.
On this river, yes, they're spread out because they cover a large distance of water.
Okay,
But are they finicky? Man, not really.
they'll
If they're
just kill
hungry and
everything.
you put something in front of them, they're gonna hit it.
The only time I've ever seen a big muskie, I wasted 2 hours of my vacation. So I was on Cayuga and I was on the southern end, and this thing was eating blackbirds off of lily pads.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've
Like
seen dads do that.
well, see, that's the thing, is I thought it was a bass originally. So I was like, I was with my wife and we were up there on vacation. My goal was to fish the Finger Lakes. I was trying to fish all of them. And people don't realize they call the Finger Lakes because it looks like a hand, but there's more than 5 of them. There's a
Oh,
lot in that area. So I
yeah,
was trying to hit as many as I could over, because what the plan was is I was actually staying in Pulaski, and then I was traveling down because I was planning on spending the second half of the week salmon fishing with my dad, who
yeah,
had a boat slip. And basically, I I hit Cayuga. We hit the southern end of it, and I saw this big blow up in a pad field, and it was a huge pad field down there. So I was like, "Oh, it's got to be bass." So I'm chasing them, and I'm seeing them through the water. I'm seeing bass, and then I saw like this massive blow up, and of course, I'm just like, I gotta go find it. Well, then, like, I didn't realize what was happening until I went into this one chunk of pads, and I saw it come out and
mhm,
like disappear, because we're talking 4 feet of water. It wasn't deep at
yeah,
all. It was midsummer. It was, August, so it was like kind of late summer, and I didn't realize that. I thought it was like a bass, like eating stuff off the surface, until I saw a blackbird land on a pad,
yeah. Well, I'll tell you
I was like,
this.
whoa,
So you ask if muskie were finicky. This is a true story. There's one of the canals that I fish in Clayton. So there's a guy that lives on that canal. He's got a nice, beautiful dock. He's got his little dog. He goes out there and throws the tennis ball. The dog jumps in the water, eats it. So I was talking to him one day, and he asked me what I was fishing for, and I said pike. And he says, "Well, there's big muskie in here this time of year." And I said, "Yeah, I know. I'm after them too." Uh, so this guy threw this tennis ball off the dock. His dog jumped in the water, and a muskie grabbed his dog. Now,
wow,
the only thing that saved this dog's life was this dog has its like own little life jacket. So he was a
trying to drag
gigantic
them
whopper
under.
plopper out there just kicking his legs,
Yep,
and that's awful, but it just shows how big of a bait they will eat,
yeah.
you know.
It actually baffles me. It's funny because I've kind of come full circle on it. So I originally used to look at the guys like Ben Milliken that are throwing these ridiculously sized swim baits and these huge freaking swim baits and the huge jointed swim baits. And to be honest, a lot of the stuff that you sell, I was like, it's just not for me, because I don't
Yeah,
think that the bass will eat that. But then I have been out there and I've seen it. I've seen it live in person where they eat like, they don't even care. And if you actually think about it, you should you actually see it even in the smaller ones, because I don't know how many times I've caught like 10-inch bass on a like 110 whopper plopper. Like
yeah,
the whopper plopper's bigger than the bass.
yeah,
There's no way he could possibly swallow that thing. And sometimes it's like they don't really care. They're just trying to kill it, and they'll figure out how to eat it later. Like, it's just
yeah. Hold on a second. This baffled. So you see this bait right here?
Yep.
So that is almost a 9-inch swim bait.
Yep.
And the guys in Massachusetts are throwing these in some of the ponds and lakes up there. Now, this is a 4-ounce bait. That's a big bait to be
Right.
throwing in ponds, and but they're getting smacked.
Yep.
They're eating them. So, I personally throw these gigantic swim baits? No, not really. I do throw like the 16-inch worms from Crazy Hick.
Okay.
Um, I do throw those a lot.
Okay.
Those are a lot of fun, and I've caught some studs on those.
What's crazy about the swim baits, and this is kind of what got me into it, and to be honest, I'm going to be probably putting an order in for some of the, not necessarily that big, but some of those smaller ones, kind of like the one that Nate had in that photo there. But um, is what I've learned is that it's not just about catching the fish with the big bait. The one thing that I've looked at is they're saying like you throw a 6, 8 inch, 9 inch swim bait, right? The bass will see it and they come out of their haunts. They're trying to figure out what this thing is and whether or not they want to kill it. So even if you don't catch a fish on that bait, it becomes a search bait because they'll
Oh,
pull up out of the cover because they're curious, they're predatory. Their instincts are kill, eat,
yep,
and survive.
yep,
That's all they live for. So if they see something go by that could be food, they're going to investigate. So sometimes, and that's one of the things that I'm gonna kind of take into consideration is because in my mind it's like, oh, I've got to throw this. I know they work. It's not that I'm naive to think they don't work. It's just I have too much ADD to throw a 4 ounce swim bait for 4 hours to catch one big bass. And
yeah,
that's typically that style of fishing is more a dedication style of you got to just grind it and grind it and grind it, and then the payoff is usually pretty good. But for the most part, you're going to get a lot of just casting and reeling and not catching fish. But in
yeah,
my mind, if I can use that as a search bait and then maybe potentially pull out a monster with it at the same time, that's something that I'm thinking about using as like an alternate. Because, like you said, you have 9 rods. Sometimes in bass fishing, for those of you who don't do it at a level of playing the game, for sometimes when you're bass fishing, it's not about the lure that you casted and caught the fish on. It could have been that lipless that you ran through there before, drawing them out because they hear those BBs, and then you throw in that soft plastic swim bait after it. They came out to figure out what that noise was, and then they see your swim bait. So it's not always the bait that you're using that necessarily caused you to catch that fish. It's a combination. It's the pattern, and those swim baits could be part of a pattern in the long run. So,
yeah. I throw those the 6-inch bluegills quite a bit. Those
yep.
do really well, and I throw the 7-inch gliders. That's the biggest one I'll throw, but those ones are only like 2.3 ounces.
Oh, okay. So
So
jig rod.
yeah, and I throw them on a 7-foot ugly stick.
Yep.
With one of I think it's like the Penn Pursuit 3, like the 4,000 or something like that. And I use 30-pound braid with those.
Yep.
Um, and I've had bass that have come out from underneath the lily pads or come up out of the grass and start following it. And
Yep.
then, if they don't eat it, I'm throwing something else in real quick.
Yep.
And generally, they will hit a smaller bait. But I tell you what, I've caught smallmouth on those 7-inch gliders. You know,
Which again, you think like it's funny how we like humanize these fish because we're like we think they have the logic like, oh, there's no way I'm going to be able to eat that. They don't necessarily think that way. They're just like, hey, look, food. Like they don't necessarily have the logic that we think they have sometimes.
oh yeah, I mean, if they can fit it in their mouth, they're going to eat it, and if they can't eat it, they'll spit it out. But
Yep.
for us, as long as they get it in their mouth, it's already too late
They
for
just
them. It's
need to
game
get
over.
that treble.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah,
exactly. I mean, actually, if you think about it, most fish species are like that because perch will eat some of the stupidest things you. I mean, I've literally caught perch on jerk baits. I've caught perch on freaking big liplesses and stuff like that, or rock bass are another one that are my favorite, because the rock bass are the funniest. I they're not really my favorite, but I catch so many of them on things that they shouldn't be trying to even think about attacking, because there's no way they could even get their mouth around the bait that I threw at them. But
Yeah.
I've literally had to almost break, like I've actually had to sit there and think about how I was going to unhook a rock bass, because he's got a treble in his mouth that I'm going to have to like break his jaw to get back out, because I don't even know how he got it all the way up inside of his mouth at that point. But
Yeah. Well, you don't want to do that.
no, and that's the thing. So it's like, it's, I guess in a way, and pike, like you said, the thing about pike is like there's always, if you throw a big bait, if you fish where there's pike,
Yeah.
there's a good chance they're gonna, because pike don't have. I was actually watching a live stream the other day about, which I didn't even know this, but I guess I kind of knew it, but I didn't realize it was part of their biology. Is pike don't have the same instincts that bass do when it comes to fear. They will attack just about anything. They don't have that like self-preservation mentality that bass do. They're actually genetically wired more to just try to kill it and see what happens. They're actually more predisposition to just attack
Oh
than
yeah.
like a bass is.
Pike will kill something just to kill it. If it's
Yep.
if they're in a spot and there's a big school of perch and you got something there that's competition for them for food,
Yep.
they're gonna shoo it off. They're gonna nip at it. You know, in some of my Instagram pictures, I've got, you know, 30-inch pike that got bite marks in them.
Yep.
And that's from this one big grass bay that I fish holds a lot of big pike and it holds some muskie in there. So they kind of need their space. And if you got something else, you know, and it's just, you know, nature's what nature does, you know, the little fish is getting shooed out of there.
Yep.
So, and I've seen guys on this river throwing gigantic baits. You know,
Oh
they're
yeah.
trolling 10-inch baits for walleye.
Yep. Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's funny to me, like, and that's the other thing, kind of getting back at the bait making. So just out of curiosity, so you make, I know you make jerk baits, swim baits, liplesses, and you
Well,
were telling me you, what's that?
I said I paint them. I don't. I
Paint
don't.
them, right? Mate, he doesn't make the blanks exactly. The top waters that you, the like the Whopper Plopper styles, are
Yep.
those actual like Whopper Plopper banks, or are those like Chopos, or are those kind of like a different brand style?
Um.
I saw
Well,
the picture, but I couldn't tell. Like, well, I guess the question is, do they have the soft paddle or do they have the hard
they have
paddle?
the hard paddle. I
Okay.
don't like the soft paddle.
Okay.
Um. Yeah. They. I always go with the hard paddle ones, just
Yep.
because of the, you know, if you're fishing in current and you're pulling that plopper against the current, you know, that soft tail, you're not getting that good chopping action like it's supposed to.
Yep.
You know, so I don't like that. I always go the one with the good hard tail on them.
Okay.
You know, and I've had ones with the soft tail, and that's the first thing I do as I get them is I super glue the back of that tail. I coat them, I lave them up and super glue and harden that up.
Gotcha.
Um, but I found a place where I get them now where they're good solid hard tails now, and I don't have to do that.
That's honestly one of my favorite baits to fish because of the ease of it. It's an easy way. It's like a user-friendly topwater, because you
Yeah,
can just throw them and reel them, and you don't have to like have a specific technique to work them or have any specific area. Granted, they don't work like, you're not. I mean, maybe people are, but you're not throwing them up on top of pads, because you'll spend the whole day picking grass out of your
yeah,
hooks. But
yeah. I'm a die hard frog fanatic.
yeah,
Uh, Dude, I probably have more frog boxes than I'd like to admit. Oh, there was a bait that I told you I was going to show you when we talked on the phone.
yep,
That Japanese frog.
yep.
Uh, yeah, let's see if I can. Which. All right. Well, It's buried in about 2 feet of soft plastic. So
Gotcha. Not a problem. We'll get a picture. I'm interested in those too because those are cool. Like that's the thing is I noticed you do have a lot of variety too. Like you don't have just two different styles. Like I've been looking through and you have a lot of different and you have different sizes of lipless, you have different sizes of plastics. So that it's nice to have the variety. And that's something that I wanted to bring up for anyone who's watching, anybody that's stuck this long into the video is if you guys are looking for something, you have a vision in your head of a bait that you want, a color that you used to like that they don't make anymore, or a color that you've always had your thoughts on, send a message. His information is down in the show notes. Hit him up on Instagram, hit him up on Facebook. He's literally told me, we had a conversation earlier this week that people have literally sent him crayon drawings and he does his best to mimic this.
yeah,
He is really, really good. I'm going to be doing actually a video series later on in the year where I'm going to be designing some custom baits that I want because there's some colors, there's some ideas that I've had. And just to give you an idea, I was trying to do that as my own series, making my own baits with scotch tape and nail polish and acrylic paint. And it came out looking like a third grade art project, and it did not look like anything realistic at all. So I have some ideas on things that I want, and I'm going to be doing that and showing you guys how easy it is to just work with them. And honestly, I put an order in, and I'm not going to set this timeline on him, but I'm just going to tell you he did it really quick. I was very impressed with the accuracy of what I wanted, and it was really easy to just give him the details. He sent me basically a picture and says, "This is what you're looking for," and I got the baits in the mail. And it's that easy. And it's something that I wanted to bring up because I know there's a lot of guys out there that are afraid to throw that crankbait that they love. They're afraid to throw that lipless because there's only one left in their box and they can't get that color anymore. That's where the custom painting scene comes into play. Or maybe you always liked this bait, but you wish that they made one in a perch color, or you wish they made it with a little bit of a difference to it.
yeah, send them. Let's do it. I love like that one that you sent me. You know, so at first I was like, this is kind of strange because the way that you need to blend the yellow, purple, and blue together.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And uh, so, like, I did that first one. I took a picture and I showed it to you, and you were like, yeah, that's kind of. And I was like, no, tell me, be upfront and
Yep.
be like, nope, that's not, it's close, but that's not what I'm looking for. Not a problem. I'll go back to the drawing board, and once you get it down and you're like, that's what I'm looking for. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
that's the big thing. The more specific that you want to be, the better your bait will be when you receive it.
Right.
And
I
but
think that's what I was most impressed about was what I thought was going to happen didn't. And what I expected was here's a picture and you're just going to send me the bait and just hope that I liked it. But instead it was literally a collaboration.
yes,
Instead of it being here's what I'm going to give you because this is my business and I'm just going to send you what you thought you wanted. It was, hey, this is my first go run. What do you think? I gave feedback. I got the next one. And then
right,
that is literally, in my opinion, what makes it different is that it's not me sending you a picture and then you sending me back a bait and then that's the end of the transaction. It was
right,
how do you want this to look? What is your envisionment? Tell me what you need and
right.
I'll make it happen.
But the other side of that coin is, so I want to make it personal. I want to have
Yep.
that connection with you. I want to know exactly what you're looking for, and I want to talk to you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Even if it's through via message. And actually, Mike, the way that bait came out, you got to thank my wife for that one because I was envisioning it differently than because this might be a little weird as a bait painter, But like when you sent that picture, I wasn't seeing the same color that was on there.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I was seeing something that was more like a fuchsia, like a iridescent fuchsia.
Okay.
And my wife was like, "No, it's purple." And I'm like, "No, it doesn't look purple." She's like, "No, I'm telling you, it's purple."
That's
so,
funny.
so if you're gonna send a picture, just send, like a good clear picture. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yep.
And
Exactly.
you can put in there this color to this color to this color,
Yep.
and that helps. But hey, there it is. So
That is cool.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's
So
like a
this
hard bait. That's like a hard. It's like a.
no, it's a
Is it
soft body.
softer? Okay.
Yeah, but
Those are cool.
um, for like 3 weeks out of the first beginning part of the season, I throw literally pink everything.
Gotcha.
I throw pink mice. I throw pink soft plastic. I throw pink and yellow crawfish. And so we were at the show, and my wife saw this on one of the racks, and she's like, "I had to get it." And I was like, "Oh."
Right. No,
So,
that's so. I was actually just looking for. I want to see if I can find the best version of it. So yeah. So right here. So I'm gonna show you guys my screen real quick again. I'm kind of liking the screen share thing because the graphics. When I do this screen share stuff, it's actually way better quality than the pictures that I do. But so these are the baits that I had designed for me. So this is a it's not an exact match, but I actually like the differences more than the original. So if you guys have been watching my channel at all, you know the bait that I call Lucky. Well, this is that bait. And this is a bait color scheme that has been discontinued. The bait maker doesn't make it anymore. I can't get them anymore. And I reached out to Chris and I said, "Hey, I want these because I can't fish them anymore and I only have two left. Could you do this?" And that was just a shot in the dark. I expected him to be like, "Nah, it's not really my scene." No, he came back with exactly what I wanted. And not only did he give me what I wanted, but you'll notice at the bottom there, those are lipless. There wasn't lipless in this bait. The original manufacturer didn't make a lipless. They only made a small 1.5 style square bill. And now I have the option, which lipless is probably one of my favorite baits because of the versatility of it. Now I have that in that pattern. So, um, just to give you guys just to give you an example of what you could do, you could literally take your mind, as long as you can translate it into something that Chris can understand, you'll get a bait in your hand that's your envisionment. And that's what I think I like the most about it is it's not a transactional thing
yeah,
for you. It is something that is you want the customer to be happy enough to want to share it on the internet, to want to bring you on a live stream to talk about it because I was so excited about the interaction that we had. That
yeah,
was if you guys don't realize, I met him at a show, asked him to design me a bait, and the reason why I asked him to come on this live stream was because I was so happy with the way the transaction went, the way I purchased the baits from him. I got the baits in a timely manner. He helped me to design what I wanted. It wasn't because he sponsored me. It wasn't because he even asked to be on the show. I was just so excited about what I had as an opportunity. And I didn't know that that existed. I honestly thought you had to buy what was on the shelf or you had to pay an astronomical amount for someone to paint you a bait that you wanted the colors of. I didn't realize it could be that easy if that was an availability. And honestly, I'm a northeast angler and you're not that far away. It's a local business. It's
yeah,
not, a big corporate Chinese manufacturing company. It's a small family business that produces colors and designs that, you guys can make your own. So if you're interested in it, definitely check out Chris. If you can't find him, you know how to find me. I can get him on the phone with you. I can get you guys in contact and you guys can start looking at
Oh,
some new baits.
just the heads up too. Um, I started your Freedom Gill. So,
Awesome.
and I don't know if you know this or not, but all the proceeds for the Freedom Gill go to the Wounded Warrior Project.
Yep. No, I definitely, for those of you who don't know, and haven't seen it yet. I'm going to be doing a video very, very soon on that. Actually, I was going to do it when I got the bait in hand, but there is a bait out there that has a really cool design, and I honestly think it's going to catch fish. It's not. That's actually what I told my wife when I saw the Jigs and Bigs podcast, and they kind of showed an image of it. He kind of held it up on the camera and showed it. It doesn't look gimmicky. And it sounds really weird to say that, but it doesn't look like you didn't just paint a flag on the side of a crankbait. You didn't cop out and try to make it like over the top. It looks like your typical springtime red type pattern. Like you could use that as a pattern, but it's very patriotic, let's say. And
Yeah,
I'll show you guys the bait when it comes out. So stay tuned. We're going to be doing a video on that very soon. But it's not a bait that what I liked about it the most is I looked at that. It was one of the times that I looked at a bait like that and was like, that would catch fish.
yeah.
I've looked at other baits that are done in that same vein where I was like, yeah, there's no way in hell that's going to even come
And
close to catching fish.
see, that's one of the other good things too I love about doing this. Like uh, Joe Brown at was it American Vet Fishing?
Yeah, I can look it up real quick, but yeah, I think that
Yeah.
sounds right.
So Joe Joe that bait was Joe's idea, and we bounced a couple prototypes back and forth before he was like, "That's the one. This is what I want to go with."
Yep,
Um, so that was I think we did. I did like the flag one with the red and white stripes with the blue head, and then I just did like the white dots as the representing for the stars.
yep.
And then I think we went with a solid red body, and then we did the white stripes. And then we went with the an actual star. Um, yeah, that bait came out pretty cool, but that's the process that I like is the banter back and forth between me and the customer.
Yep.
Hey, give me the insights, give me some ideas. I might not be seeing what you envision in your mind, so help me see your vision, kind of thing. And
Right.
another another guy I work with that's designed a couple cool baits is Todd Hughes. Now,
Okay.
if you guys don't know Todd, check Todd out on Instagram. Todd's been doing the tournament thing for a long time, and he designed a bait called Hughes Candy. Now, this bait is 100% translucent. It's a chartreuse belly,
Okay.
pearlized purple with electric blue, and the science behind this bait is, you know, so when I'm painting this bait, I'm holding it way back here. I'm just lightly dusting it. So what this does is when that jerk bait or crankbait comes down in the water column and the sun hits it, it's reflecting all that light down into the
Okay.
water column. So they might not see the bait at first, but they're seeing that color. And they're going to be, okay, where's that coming from?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that's turned out to be a pretty productive bait.
It's funny how that works too because I've learned like the bait that you designed for me, that is a very dark colored bait. But I've also learned to appreciate, and that's actually one of the ones that I want to like work with you on is I'd want to have I've learned that sometimes those little bit of more ghosty translucent baits when that water's a little bit more clear, when there's not as much wind, not as much current, and you want it to be a little more subtle and not in their face,
Yeah.
that helps a lot. And I've learned that the hard way because I went out buying in my mind, I went out and bought chartreuse because chartreuse, that's the obvious color, right?
Yeah.
But it's not always about the bright flash.
No.
Sometimes you got to let the color be muted and let the action draw the fish in, and then it looks natural and they come and smoke it. So sometimes you want a little bit less of an in your face color and that clearness, and that can't be easy to paint because I mean in the end of the day you're putting something on top of a plastic bait, so it's hard to like I imagine you have to like know how to hit that with just enough paint where it's making a color but it's not completely saturated
Yeah.
to
I
the
mean,
point where
some
it
of
blends
those
in.
I'm painting at like, I think like 7 or 8 psi, you
Okay.
know, um, and like I said, you hold that distance back. You can do that just to you're just lightly pixelating the color onto that bait.
Okay.
You're not blasting it. You're not, you know.
Yep.
And what you were talking about just there a minute ago. So like on those cloudy, like overcast days, I'm pretty basic. I throw like opaque white,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know, or sometimes I'll throw opaque white with like a pearlized belly. They get smoked on those days.
It's something that I'm learning. So I never used white. Very rarely did I ever use white. Last year, I threw a white chatterbait. Now, granted, I threw the white chatterbait because where I was fishing had that like blue green algae crap,
Hmm.
and it was so muddy that you couldn't see your hand 2 inches under it.
Yeah,
So that white contrast on that brown water really stood out. So I was
yeah,
using that color. And that's what people don't realize is sometimes like and black does the same thing, which is something that really baffled me. And getting into like color science is insane because you would think dark water, why would you use black? But black is the opposite of the brown water. So it's the
yeah. You're gonna
contrast of that
silhouette it.
color and you're going to create this weird silhouette. So that's something that I think it's funny how like you have to think about that when you're fishing, but then you also have to think about that while you're at work because you're not just fishing, you're also like how is this going to look in certain conditions? How is this going to
Well,
translate?
well, that's one of the first questions I asked during that interaction. Like, what's
Yep.
your water clarity? You
Yep.
know, um, and I paint it's a solid black bait. It's got a little bit of red under the throat with gold flake, and that's like one of the go-to. I use it for really stained muddy water, which I don't
Yep.
really fish that much often. Um, when I get into some of these backwaters, the mud that runs off the banks, they'll get pretty murky, and that's where I'll
Um,
throw that solid black bait with that gold flake in it. And then I use them for night fishing a lot.
yep.
Dude, those things get smashed at night.
Yep.
Um, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Now, do you use any like UV charge like glow paint at all too? Do you have any of that, or do you
I,
find that
I
actually is worth it or not?
I do, but in all honesty, so for them to really work right with paint, those lights they throw out in the water and it
Yep.
attracts fish, the UV lights. To really make that bait do what it's supposed to do, you probably have to use one of those lights.
Makes sense.
Um, yeah, so I've painted a few, but that's not something I normally do.
Makes sense. I know
Yeah,
like the salmon fishing. The reason why I asked is because, like I said, I come from the like Lake Ontario king salmon, browns, lake trout, and almost every spoon manufacturer is like UV blue, UV green, like UV,
right.
UV, UV all the time, and it's like in my mind, I'm like, I just always wanted to ask that question because I thought about it, and I've actually thought about putting glow because they make like glow mica powder
Yep,
pigment stuff, and
yep,
I've thought about mixing that with my soft plastics
yep.
just to see if I could get like because you get like those Senkos with like the chartreuse tip, right? If
Yeah,
I could make that a glow tip too on top of it when I get it down deep, but I don't feel like with a moving bait though, it doesn't. I don't know if it really matters as much because it is moving and it's gonna. I don't know if you're really gonna be able to capture the light as quickly as you do with like a Senko that's just slowly sinking. You know what I mean? So
yeah, because they're just seeing a glimmer go by.
yeah, it's just like a
With
streak.
that soft as it's sinking. I mean, that's right in their face.
Yeah, that makes
That's
sense.
like if you notice, like my jerk baits, I'll try and detail the jerk baits as much as I can because that's boom, 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 and then
Yep,
stops. I
yep,
want that to be spot on to what they're foraging on, just or kind of a crazy color, to get a reaction strike. But um, yeah, I like detailing those jerk baits just for that. So
and you guys seriously check out his Instagram, check out his Facebook, and look at some of these jerk baits because I'm telling you, they're realistic. Like he's got some crazy detail. I saw that one that you made that was like I don't even know. It was like a shad color, but you had like legit scale. Like it looked like a live bait. Like it had the scales along the bottom.
Oh, that's with the color shifting paint.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
that
insane.
one's
Like
nasty.
I was looking at that thing and I was like, that is looks like a real bait fish. Like
Yeah,
it was insane how good that detail was. You'd almost like feel like you could see the scales across. You know what I mean? Like just the way it was painted, the way the color was. That's actually one of the first photos I saw, and I was like, oh man, I gotta call him and see if I can get some stuff
yeah,
designed.
yeah. We
So
had a guy at one of the shows pick one up. Said he wanted to flay it.
yeah. Yeah, it's insane. So I want to be respectful to your time. I know it's getting to be that time of year where you have probably a ton of work to do, probably a bunch of
Oh,
orders coming in.
yeah,
So,
it's
but if you guys do want some custom baits, check him out. If you need to get a hold of him and you can't get a hold of him, hit me up and I'll start bugging him and we'll get him on your bait and see if we can get some stuff ordered. And you do have some stores locally too to you that you sell in, right?
yeah. So we'll have a limited amount at the Thousand Islands Bait Store.
Okay.
Um, we have here in our store at Bay House Artisans. Um, I pretty much carry everything that I have in my inventory. I put down in that store, and then we have a limited amount at the corner market in Theresa as well.
Okay. So if you guys want to check it out and you're local to that area, I am not local to that area. It's a long drive, so I'll pay for the shipping and have them send them to me. But I'll recommend checking these baits out. And guys, put the orders in. You're going to be seeing me fish them all year, so you guys will get to see them firsthand. And I've got a bunch of other designs, so I'm probably going to have a small arsenal of A-Bay lures in my
Yeah,
box by
bring
the
them
end of the
on,
season.
buddy. Bring them on.
So, but I want to thank Chris for coming on. I just wanted to do something a little different. I haven't had anybody from the bait making industry, from the actual business side of it on the channel. So I wanted to have something a little different. And he's a fisherman too. So, it kind of worked out for the best of both worlds. I want to thank everyone who came in here that sat here and watched the videos. I see a few of you are still hanging out. Thank you very much for coming on. And we're going to get going. But again, check him out, get some baits, and we will see you guys all in the water.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Mike. Thanks for the opportunity. And, anytime. And when you got an idea for baits, just send me a message and we'll get them rolling.
Absolutely. Good night, guys.